Hey everybody, Stuff I Heard podcast. You ready? Here we go.
And good morning, everybody. This is the Stuff I Heard podcast. Today is Saturday, the 14th of December, 2019, and this is episode 169. Wow, really blowing through these things. How about that? I have been up for quite a while. I got up just before 4 a.m. because that's my normal sleep schedule. We did a class recently at work, and it's sort of like defensive driving, but it's this new thing that they've developed just for our company because of, let's just call it political reasons. The idea was we used to use a different company. They were owned by an insurance group. They wouldn't give us materials unless we signed up with their insurance company, and my company decided, hey, listen, we're big enough. Let's make our own defensive driving class. I mean, we need something that's more specific to us and the job that we do. And so it was a smart move. But anyway, during that process, there were a lot of things that I learned in the way. And one of the things I learned is I've become more comfortable talking in front of people. When I was younger, I used to have a real fear of talking in front of people. And it was largely because of a stuttering problem that I had when I was a kid. But also, if I'm honest, I think back to when I was younger. Obviously, you don't have self-esteem. You're constantly thinking, what are other people thinking about me? And I can't imagine what that's like for young kids nowadays with social media tacked on as another lens to their life. It's weird that I think about that now. I'm 45 now. I mean, let's be honest. I'm no spring chicken. And, I don't care anymore. I do care a little, but I don't care. Like, on a scale of 1 to 10, I care about a 2 or a 3. Now, I'll be honest, some days I'm feeling fat, and some days I don't want you to see my double chin, like if I do like this. You guys can see that on YouTube. Some days I eat a little too heavy, or I drink a little too much beer, and I go, oh, I just feel bleh. And then I look at myself on screen, and I go, whoa, Josh needs to lay off the extra food there, buddy. And I do, and, it's one of those self-regulating things, and, it's just one of those things that you got to kind of keep an eye on. But when you're younger, you have growth. You have a lot of growth. You're constantly growing. I remember waking up some mornings and thinking, wow, the floor is even further from my eyes than they were the other day. Like, I can see myself grown. The ground just looks farther from my vision, like everything is different. And, maybe there's some truth to that. Maybe you do grow a good bit in your sleep. Maybe that's one of the purposes of sleep, is to allow your body to sleep. But you have a natural circadian rhythm, which is what we talked about in this defensive driving class. And I never really thought about it, but your body has a natural time of when it wants to sleep and when it wants to stay awake. And you can train your body to do different things. It naturally, though, wants to sleep between 2 and 5 every day, whether that's 2 a.m. to 5 a.m. or 2 p.m. to 5 a.m. Those are the times when you're going to be the sleepiest. And I'm not exactly sure why. I don't think anybody's ever really determined why we sleep or why we need sleep or even why we dream. I mean, when you watch the movie Avatar and the guy, gets plugged into the thing and all of a sudden he's this avatar and he's flying around on this planet as a big, 12-foot tall blue dude. And then he comes back into what is the real world. He says that the more time he spends in this avatar, the less he feels like his supposedly real life is real life. And feels like this is the thing he has to do in order to be the blue monkey. Let's just call it the blue monkey. And I think that at times we all get wrapped up in things that have nothing to do with our real life. We just can't wait to turn into the blue monkey at the end of the day. Now, whatever your version of that blue monkey is really up to you. Like, we all have hobbies. We all have things that we get into. And then we have this stuff that we have to do during the day because society says we have to do it in order to exchange our efforts for money. Okay? And we have like a social agreement that, yes, we're going to do this to the best of our abilities. But there are times where we're distracted, where our brain is like, boy, I can't wait to go home and be the blue monkey. The weird part is nowadays, kids have a lot of things that are distracting them. I mean, this is getting ready to be Christmas time, and there's these video games out that are so immersive. I'm sure that people have kids right now that are dealing with the Fortnite issue. I mean, I hear about it all the time, where all they want to do is play Fortnite 24 hours a day. You know, there was a time where World of Warcraft was that, even in this house. You know, I had 3 sons, and they were all wanting to play it, and they were all wanting to play it all the time. I was guilty of it for a little while. I was so sucked into it, I was like, well, this is way better than my normal life, because I can't upgrade anything around here. I can only do my little part, and I'm not making that much money, and I'm struggling to pay the bills, and, there's always these drag things to do, like feed these kids, clean up after them. And it's really not as cool as slaying a dragon with a whole bunch of your buddies and being able to be a magic caster and all this other crap. But none of it's real. Like let's be honest, none of it's real. It's nice to think that it's real, but there's a separation of reality and fantasy. And, I was discussing this with somebody this week about how he had come into contact with someone who said that, I'm sure he's probably listening right now and he's laughing about this, that they have a friend in school that self-identifies, I hate that term, self-identifies as a seahorse. And all of his friends just play along like, yeah, he's a seahorse. And I'm like, this is the kind of thing that happens only where people don't struggle for food. Think about how lucky we are here in America. We don't have to struggle for food. We can go to the grocery store. We can go to any convenience store. There's a McDonald's almost on every corner. You can go get you a little Happy Meal, man. I mean, hey, there's people out there willing to feed you. There's missions. There's all kinds of stuff. And because of that, you can self-identify as a seahorse. You weirdo. Yes, I said weirdo. I realize that perhaps we're given a finite amount of time on this earth for a reason. We're given a finite amount of time so that we can leave behind and go on to the afterlife and let the next generation deal with the craziness of what has been created. Because you have to learn on a different scale. The learning has to be on a different scale. Think about technology and the way it's advanced just in the last 10 or 20 years. Think about your phone, how it's advanced. Think about cameras, how they've advanced. I mean, when I was a kid, I remember that, 35 millimeter film was going to be a big deal. Whoa, 35 millimeter film. We used to have this Kodak that took pictures on a 110 cartridge, this little tiny cartridge like this. It had 2 little circles on the ends, and you put it in the back of the camera, and you had a giant bulb flash thing on top of it. And when you took a picture, it would burn out the bulb, and then the thing would flip around as you advanced the film to the next slide. And you only got 4 pictures out of the flash, and then you had to buy more flashes to put into it. And that was just how it was. And then this 35 millimeter camera came out that had an automatic flash. Whoa, that was a big deal. And, people had jobs as photographers. And somehow, I don't know how, but somehow they wrangled themselves the ability to buy these really expensive cameras so that they could take these shots that were better than the average consumer. And when I was in, I don't know, maybe 3rd grade or so, I entered a raffle at Boy Scouts, and I won a 35 millimeter camera. Ooh, yay. I thought, man, I'm big stuff. I got a better camera than my mama. And I brought it home, and I showed her, and she's like, wow, that's really cool. We need some film, Let's go see how much film is. Film was expensive. Golly. But, I worked it out, did some chores, earned the money. She helped me get the film. I put the film in the camera. You take pictures. Maybe you take like 25 or 26 pictures, and then the film was all full, and you take it to a place, and you put it in their little Dropbox, and you have to come back in like a week, and maybe they've developed it. And when you get your pictures, you're like, what did I take a picture of? And it might be a picture of the floor because you accidentally hit the shutter button. Or it might be the sky because you were like looking at the camera and like, oh, I can't believe I took a picture of that. Or your finger's in front of the lens and you got a picture with your finger in front of the lens. And it's like, really? That's the thing I took a picture of? I can't believe I wasted this money and this time and all this effort and blah, blah, blah. And then when you did get pictures of the people that you wanted in your picture, sometimes they had glowing red eyes because the flash didn't really accommodate for eyes and the reflection of the bright light. And so cameras have obviously improved. Now we have cameras on everything. Cameras on our cell phones that are almost cinematic quality. This morning I got up at, 4:45 and I'm on YouTube researching cameras. I'm like, all right, let's look at cameras. Let's look at what's the new camera. What's the way I could record this podcast for longer than 30 minutes with a good image quality and good sound quality. You guys probably know that I started off using a big camera. I bought this big camera for YouTube purposes. This Canon EOS Rebel T7i. It's a beautiful camera. It's an expensive camera. It's very heavy. Takes up a lot of space. I'm terrified that I'm going to break it, so I'm really careful with it all the time. I realize that there's limitations on where I can take it and what I can do with it because it's so big and cumbersome and heavy and breakable. So in that pursuit, I thought, okay, I need something a little different. I'd started off with like this G7X Mark II, which is great, little handheld thing, but, it has limitations. It has an autofocus that wants to constantly zoom in and zoom out on things. And if you moved in front of it, it would look at your hand, and then it would take a while to get the camera back. I was like, come on, dude, just focus on me. And I tried using the manual settings, and it doesn't quite work. And I was like, so every step along the way as you go, I want to upgrade. I want to do something better. I want to be able to make this better for my experience, but also for yours. I mean, you're taking the time to actually listen to me or watch me, and you're like, hey, what can we do? And this could be anything in your life. This could be if you're into racing cars, or if you're into, playing guitar, or if you're into playing banjo, or you name it, whatever it is, cooking. Every time you get into something, you go, how can I get a little better? Well, right now, this is my obsession. This is what I'm excited about. It's been raining on every day I have off, so I can't go outside and really do any woodworking. So what am I going to do? Do research. Try and figure out how to make this all better. So I've been doing research. Now, here's the weird thing when you go down the rabbit hole is there's not exactly like one source that's going to tell you everything. So you got to look at everything out there. And that means watching hours and hours and hours of video. And no one appreciates the time put in to learn the stuff. I mean, let's face it, we all have like the microwave mentality of, I want it now. Give me the answers now. Tell me what I want to know now. And if it doesn't come now, then a lot of people lose interest and they move on to other things. They're like, I don't care. I ain't got time for this. And they move on. Well, I don't want to just move on. I want to learn. So in learning, sometimes it's important to kind of get geeky with some of your friends that are into the same thing. If you're into racing cars, if you're into building whatever, you name it, cooking, making cakes, I don't know, whatever your thing is. You need a community around you so that you can all kind of geek out and talk about, hey, this is what I learned. What did you learn? Oh, okay, well, this worked and that didn't work. Okay, cool. And you sort of help each other out along the way. Well, YouTube is this weird ability to make a community out of people that you may never actually meet. I mean, now that we have the internet, we can communicate with people around the globe, and we can all experiment with different things. We can all say, hey, I tried out this camera, this is what I learned, this is what I didn't learn, this is what I liked, this is what I didn't like. Right now, if you're watching the YouTube video, I'm recording the YouTube video on a Canon Vixia, V-I-X-I-A, HFW10. Okay? It's a new camera. It records in 60p. I don't know what that means. Is that 60 pixels per second? I don't know. It has that, and it has another function called 60i. And I recorded on 60i, but it had all these weird lines in the screen, and I was like, it looks terrible. But I watched the thing online, again, through a community, and it says, try out the 60p. It's a better film quality. And it looks better. I can see myself on the screen there. Hey, guys. And it looks better. So I'm like, okay, well, that's an upgrade. Cool. Now, here's the question. If I have a podcast in this room and I have people around, how am I going to record everybody Joe Rogan style? Like, let's face it, if I'm going to compare myself to somebody, I might as well compare myself to the top person. He has the top setup. How do I get my setup to look better? Burt Kreischer and Tom Segura have Two Bears, One Cave, and they just have a very long counter or bar, or what do you call it? Table. A very long table, one camera pointed at both of them. And then they have the ability to go camera to film each one of them talking individually, and then they go to a broad spectrum of them. That's easy. To me, that's like a theater, okay? What's in front of you, what's this way, what's that way. You've got one field of view. Joe has something a little bit different because he's got a T setup, okay? He's got one table going in front of where young Jamie sits, the engineer, and he's got one table out in front. And the table out in front is Joe sits on one side and his people he's interviewing sit on the other side. And, that means you have to have cameras on each side of the room, one for Joe and a guest, if another guest is beside him, and then a couple cameras on the people on the other side of the table. And somehow they switch between cameras, and I'm trying to figure it out guerrilla style. Does that make any sense? I'm trying to figure it out without any instruction. Like, there's nobody I can just go, hey, by the way, how did you do that? I mean, I don't think young Jamie's going to be open to questions from, some dude doing it out of his spare bedroom, grassroots starting it. It would be cool if he had like a master class of, hey, this is how you set this up, and he would do that. But honestly, why would he? He doesn't need to. He doesn't have time. He's a very busy guy. I mean, I have no idea how many podcasts he actually records of Joe's, but let's face it, he's doing a lot because Joe does 3-hour podcasts and Jamie's there for all of it. So he's putting in work. And, Joe's not just sitting around. Joe's constantly challenging Jamie with, hey, can we do this? Can we do that? And Jamie has to figure it out as the production engineer. He's constantly figuring it out, and kudos to him. I've been lucky in the fact that Burt has an engineer named Halston Ray, and I've reached out to Halston at times, and he's written me back. He's like, hey, this is how I do this. And I'm like, cool, thank you. And it's super helpful. Listen, one of the things that's going to help us all succeed in life is if we reach out to each other and we help each other and we say, here's what I learned. So no matter the growth on this, I hope that I never get to a point where I don't help people with what I know. And I may get so busy that I can't. I don't know. This is the infancy. I mean, this is episode 169, but this is the infancy of what I have planned. Okay? I want to grow community. I want to grow people doing their own podcasts. I want to help people to build possibly a podcast network and see where it goes. I mean, there's no limitations. The only limitations is us, right? Me and you. So what do you want to do? What do you want to promote? Let's do it together. Why not, right? All right. Let's change gears a little bit. I know you guys are sick of me talking about cameras and BS like that. You're probably driving down the road going, dude, I'm falling asleep, man. Talk about something else. Okay, fine. I'll talk about something else. Let's talk about Amazon Prime. This is Stuff I Heard podcast. Amazon Prime has shows on there all the time, and I hear about people talking about shows. They're like, you got to watch this show. You got to watch this show. You got to watch this show. And I don't have time. There's only so much bandwidth that you have time for, okay? Also, some of it I just don't care about. I mean, I see the preview and I go, I don't care. Here is a show I care about. The Grand Tour. The Grand Tour is made up of 3 guys who used to be on Top Gear on BBC. Jeremy Clarkson, Richard Hammond, and James May. If you've ever watched the BBC Top Gear, it is hilarious. These 3 guys are hilarious. They are fun together. They come up with fun challenges. And I want to say it was maybe 5 or 6 years ago, Clarkson got fired. he and a producer had words. I think Clarkson maybe punched him in the face. And they said, all right, you're fired. Get out. And he was like, what? And so when he got fired, the other two said, yeah, I quit. I'm with him. Like, he had every right to punch that dude in the face. And I can't believe you fired him over something like this because he was in the right. I don't know what the incident was. That's just stuff I heard. Okay. Now, they went over to Amazon, and Amazon said, hey, listen, we like you guys, and we want you to do a show kind of like it. What do you think? We got a big budget. I mean, we don't mind spending money. We're Amazon. And so they were like, yeah, great, okay. And they've been making content. Okay, so when the show started, like the first 2 seasons were a little bit clunky because they were trying to figure out a formula that worked for them. Season 3 was really great. And season 4 just started. The first episode just came out. And it was funny because I'm looking on my list of, now showing, and it said the giant word semen, and it had Jeremy Clarkson's face on it. And I was like, wait, what? What is that? And then I looked a little closer, and it says Grand Tour presents Seaman. And I was like, oh, Seaman. Oh. Well, whew, I was worried there. So I clicked on it, and right away it started off with content. They did a hour and 20-something minute show for the first episode of them going to Cambodia. And instead of cars, they did a boat challenge. They each picked out a boat. They were supposed to travel through Cambodia by boat from one side of Cambodia to the other to get to the South Sea at some certain point. And it was very interesting. They always do a challenge that's very grueling physically for them. They go through tremendous lengths to show what the people around are dealing with. And sometimes it's environmental issues, and this is one of those cases. China had come in and built a dam, and a river where they were supposed to start, which shows on the map, is gone because of this dam. There's boats lined up where they just got stuck because there's no water. It's one of those things where they built the dam to provide electricity for the people who live there. Hydroelectric, you're thinking, okay, well, cool. That's, you're using water to create electricity. That's great. But then the side effect is you also take away water from some certain areas that used to get water on a regular basis and have water, and the people who depended on that water now are stuck. And so that's the case that they were dealing with. So they had to bicycle down this, what used to be a river, beside it, all passing by hundreds of boats to get to where they could finally put a boat in the water. And of course, the first episode they start off with, it starts raining ridiculously with lightning and all kinds of chaos. And they're in this giant lake, and it's like, whoa, big lake. And, they all have different styles, and they always go with something silly to kind of compete in the challenges. And it's interesting to see their choices. I don't know how much is their choice or how much is production choice. I think a lot of it is just their choice because there's always something that they like personally about it, and it just makes it kind of funny to banter back and forth about the thing, whatever it is. And this is no different. Jeremy Clarkson, like they buy these boats and then they compare, oh, I got this, blah, 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 and it cost this much money. And they're like, oh, okay. And, Richard Hammond pulls up in this Miami Vice looking cigar boat, this really enormous, and it says Razzle Dazzle on the side of it. It looks like something that was built in the 80s for like a Miami Vice episode. It's got the weird logo on the side and the funky letters, and they're all looking at him and go, oh, that is ridiculous. You do realize they were going on a river. And he's like, hey, yeah, this will be great. He's got a cabin underneath. He's thinking, oh, this will be awesome. And James May pulls up in a 1939 boat with like a 4-cylinder diesel engine. Meanwhile, the cigar boat has 2 V8s. And then Jeremy Clarkson pulls up in this like remake of I don't know the name of it, but it's some kind of military grade boat that they used in Vietnam that runs on jet propulsion instead of a propeller. It has jet propulsion actually made by Jacuzzi with two V8s in it because it could run in really shallow water, and you could attach all kind of guns to it and all kind of stuff like that. But he had this thing built. And they're talking about, oh, how much does yours cost? Oh, one was like, 16,000 pounds, and oh, this is 20,000 pounds, and how much does yours cost, Jeremy? He's like, he kind of walks away from the camera. And is like, what was that? 100,000 pounds it cost to build this thing. He said that there was none in production. He wanted one, so he had it built. And I'm thinking, right away, my brain's doing the math, and I'm going, okay, who paid for this? Did Amazon pay for this? Did the show pay for this? How is this written off as like an expense? Because in almost every episode, no matter what they use, is if it's a car, a motorcycle, a boat, it always gets pretty much destroyed by the time the episode's over with. Is this factored into the cost of the show? That's my question. Like I always wonder like the back information on this. How is this okayed? Is this, oh no, it's a tax write-off, man. We used it for the production, so it's factored into the cost of the show, and we can actually write it up as production costs and blah blah. I don't know how that works. It's always fascinating though. But what's great is they start off the episode and they're thinking, I'm in a big lake, I can take off. The lake is very shallow. They're all bottoming out. They're all running on mud. It's largely a fishing area, so there's fishing nets everywhere. They get tangled up in fishing nets and constantly have to stop and pull the fishing nets off. And it's one catastrophe after the other, and it doesn't get better. The episode gets hard for them every step of the way, and it just gets funnier, okay? There's a lot of funny scenes in this that are hilarious. Anyway, I'm a big fan. I'm a fan. I hope that they understand that the crap that they go through to make that show is widely entertaining for me and many people. So I hope they keep it up. I enjoy it. I know the guys are getting older. They all have graying or gray hair or losing hair, but it's hilarious to watch. It really is. All right, let's talk about some other stuff. Netflix. Netflix has a movie for Christmas called Klaus, 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 and it's delightful. It's got that Christmas feel to it. It's a sort of about Santa Claus, but not really. Not to give anything away, but there's a mailman who's lived a privileged life, who is made to go to an outpost on the northernmost island of this chain of islands to prove himself, because he's lived a very lavish, easy life, and he's taken it for granted. And his father says, you go there and you serve, or I'm cutting you off. And so the guy has these, he's sort of stuck in a way. He's made to kind of deal with the situation that he's been given, and it's pretty rough conditions. And he wants to get out of there. So selfishly, he comes up with a plan. And in his plan, he ends up sort of motivating this guy named Klaus, who is a woodsman who lives far away, to make toys and deliver toys. And the mailman actually delivers the toys, but in there is this folklore story of how you can see the unwinding ribbon of how the fantasy of Santa Claus came about. And there's actors and actresses in this that you're going to hear their voices, because it's a cartoon. You're going to hear their voices and go, oh, I know that person. And we found ourselves Googling it to see the names. And it was like, oh, cool. This is really cool. It's really good. It's a feel-good movie. If you got kids, this will be fun to watch. Me and my wife watched it. We don't have kids there at the house. We totally enjoyed it. It was great. Good job, Netflix. That was a good show. If you just want a Christmas movie to watch, it's a good Christmas movie. And then yesterday, not a Christmas movie, is the new Michael Bay movie that just came out on Netflix called 6 Underground, featuring Ryan Reynolds. If you've seen commercials for it, it looks like it's high energy, a lot of sound, a lot of motors, a lot of guns. Michael Bay is famous for the big explosion, Transformers, Fast and Furious style filming. And this is no different. This starts off with, it felt like a 20-minute car chase scene that was just intense. There's a lot going on. There's so much going on that you go, wait, what did I just see? And as soon as you ask yourself that question, something else happens. You go, whoa, did that just happen? Holy cow. You know, it is stunt work and film editing on a level that only Michael Bay does. I mean, he's got a niche, and this is his niche. He goes all out with this movie. There's not a boring scene in it. There are actors who look like famous people that you're like, no, that's not them. And I Googled the cast, and honestly, Ryan Reynolds is the only person that I knew on the thing. But very cool. I don't know what to say about it. It's not like I wouldn't say it was a great movie because it's not my style of movie. But if you like, that loud, fast action, holy crap, I can't believe they pulled that off kind of scenes, this is the movie for you. It's on Netflix, so, I mean, if you got Netflix, it's free. Just buckle up and get your caffeine ready and enjoy. You definitely don't have to think watching it. It's just like, whoa, holy cow, It's a guilty pleasure, I guess you'd say. So anyway, I listened to some podcasts this week. I listened to Good For You with Whitney Cummings. She interviewed Bill Burr, and during their podcast, Bill does a lot. I don't know if anybody knows who Bill Burr is. He has a great Netflix special right now called Paper Tiger. It came out a couple months ago. Just hilarious comedian. He's known for being kind of an angry comic. He gets really upset at situations, and he finds the humor in it. And a lot of comedians that I listen to their podcasts all revere Bill as their idol. He's the guy that they hope to measure up to. He's the guy that comes up with a new hour almost every year. He's the guy that he never has a conversation without seeing his wheels turn in his brain of the new joke. And Paper Tiger is basically him saying, these are all the ridiculous things that we're not supposed to talk about in public, but let's talk about it anyway because I got a joke about it, and I want you to find the humor in the situation. He wants to take the sting out of it. This is kind of what Dave Chappelle did with his Sticks and Stones special that came out the week before Bill's special. Same premise. Here's some ridiculous, horrible topics. Let's find the joke in it. And he does. And Bill has his own podcast. It's called the Monday Morning Podcast. He gets a lot of crap because he doesn't deliver every Monday morning, but he's like, listen, this is just the name I started with. Guys, get over it. It's a great podcast that he does pretty much solo all the time. Once in a while, his wife, Nia, comes in there, and she has some input, and every once in a while, a guest will come in, but for the most part, it's just him talking. He's kind of what inspired me to do what I'm doing, me talking in front of a camera. It's like, how do you do that? Well, it's really tough in the beginning, but the more you do it, the better you can get at it, right? So Bill's got his podcast, really great. He's also got a special, animated series on Netflix called F is for Family. And it's sort of the story of a struggling family growing up in the 70s and the crazy crap they have to deal with a rough family situation. A lot of cursing, hilarious, really hilarious show. And, this is one of the things where Bill and Whitney can kind of talk on even terms because they both are not only comedians, stand-up comedians, top of their class comedians, they're also producers of shows. They're also actors in shows. They're also creators of content in all directions. So it's really a podcast of like peers. They're peers. That's the best way to put it. They're basically in an elite class of people right now, which neither one of them would call themselves elite. Neither one of them would say, oh, I'm the best at blah, blah, blah. They're very humble in the fact that they're just trying to figure this out, and they're doing the best they can, like all of us. But they are in an elite class right now of creators who see a project that they want to happen and they know how to get it done, or they know who to talk to get it done. And Bert Kreischer is in rarefied air right now because he's friends with both of these people, really close friends with both of these people, and he's moving into that territory. There's a lot of things going on for Bert right now, and you guys know I'm a big Bert fan, but he's sort of let it leak out that he's doing a show for Netflix. He's doing a movie, and his podcast has taken off. I mean, him and Bill Burr do a podcast. They just recorded another episode. It should be out soon. The Bill Burr podcast. Just the two of them smoking cigars, sitting around talking for 3 hours. As a fan, what more could I ask for, right? But anyway, in this podcast, good for you, he keeps mentioning The Mandalorian. Oh, yeah, The Mandalorian. And I'm thinking, is he just a fan of The Mandalorian? What? I don't get it. So I get off work yesterday, and I'm looking on my social media, and this thing keeps popping up saying, holy crap, I turned on The Mandalorian, and there's Bill Burr. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. He's in The Mandalorian? I love The Mandalorian. It's Friday. I get to watch The Mandalorian. The 6th episode is out. So I click on the Disney Plus, and I start watching it. Sure enough, there's old Billy Redhead, Bill Burr. And I'm so excited. I'm like, he's on the show. Not only is he on the show, he's on all of the episode. Like, he's in a lot of the... He's a cool character. Like, I'm excited. I think I posted a picture on Facebook and Instagram. I was like, Bill Burr, yes! It's so cool. And, you know, what's funny is I've been watching the show now, that 6 episodes in, and Bill's a stand-up comedian, but so far he's the best actor on the show. I don't know if that has anything to do with the lack of acting on the show so far, or just the fact that Bill's that good an actor. I mean, he's great on it. Listen, Bill, thank you for being on The Mandalorian. You just made it better, okay? I know everybody went crazy for Baby Yoda. You made the show better. So, yay. I hope you pop up on more episodes. This is really awesome. Okay, so I talked about Mandalorian, and I talked about Good For You. Let's talk about Bert Kreischer's podcast, The Bertcast. Episode 377, Andrew Dice Clay. Now, the Dice Man was a comedian on a different level growing up. When I was a kid, he was sort of the first example for my generation of comedians who went from performing one time on stage to all of a sudden he's everywhere. He's selling out stadiums. He's selling out, everything that he's performing in. He has these mannerisms and this character that he's playing. Andrew Clay, Andrew Silverstein, it's actually his name, is this character, the Dice Man. And he comes across as this bigger than life, Fonzie-ish, character that has all these one-liners that are really offensive and also hilarious. And it becomes this rarefied air of telling jokes in a way that it becomes the greatest hits. For a long time, a comedian would do a bit, and it was not a bit unless you were surprised. He came on, and he basically did comedy Freebird style. What I mean by that is he came up with jokes that you repeated with your friends, and then when you heard him do it again, you wanted to do it with him. He would start off the joke, and you could finish it. He could start off the joke, and you could do it with him. He could start off the joke, and you knew the rest of the set, but you still wanted to hear him do it. Similarly to Bert doing his machine story for me. As soon as I hear, when I was 22, I got involved with the Russian Mafia, and this is how it happened. I could tell the rest of the story. I know it. I have heard it over 1,000 times. Every time I hear him do it, I go, I want to hear it again. Do it again. Do it again. Do it again. It's his Freebird. He's found that rare space of the holy crap story, like Ron White doing tater salad. If Ron White starts off the story of tater salad, you're going to go, ooh, this is going to be good. I know this story and it's so good. It's so good. You're excited because you know the pan out, you know how it pays off, but every time he tells it, it's a little bit different. Andrews wasn't that way. As the Dice Man, he just did the lines over and over again, and it was hilarious every time. Because you knew it was a character, you knew it was not real, you knew it was just silly and offensive and funny, but you still wanted to be there when he did it. And he does a great podcast with Burt. Burt's a fan. Burt's always been a fan. And you kind of hear in this conversation that the Dice Man is a fan of Burt. He likes what he does. And, he's moved into being an actor later in life. He still does comedy, but he's done acting. A Star is Born. He played Lady Gaga's dad, the chauffeur. I didn't even recognize him on the screen. I was like, I thought the Dice Man was in this. Like, I had to look it up and go, holy crap, that was Dice? I had no idea. I saw him in Entourage. He had a character in Entourage. But in this podcast, they have a good conversation. This is the first time Burt listened on any one of his podcasts. He actually listened to Dice talk. And in there, Dice is Dice for probably 60% of the interview. But then 40% of it, he's Andrew. And he talks about the reality of what his situation was and what he dealt with. And listen, the guy's got to be in his 60s. I mean, maybe early 60s, but still. He's in a position of his life where he can be reflective and kind of talk about it from a different point of view. And he doesn't have to just be a character all the time. And he talks about that too. He talks about how he'd go in and do interviews in the beginning and he would just be himself. And nobody wanted that. They wanted him to be that character. And they were like, okay, well, that was okay. And he was like, I just realized at a certain point I had to be on all the time. And if I wasn't on, it wasn't what people wanted. And it was just, it's a great interview. Really good interview. Then the very next episode, 378, is with Michelle Wolf. I talked last episode about Michelle Wolf's special. She has a special on Netflix called The Joke Show. Or not The Joke Show, but Joke Show. Drop the. And Burt talks a lot in this podcast about running. Apparently, Michelle Wolf is a big-time runner. I looked her up on social media, and sure enough, she's posting running photos and videos all the time of doing trail runs and these epic 50-mile runs. And I was like, holy crap. She talks about running every day. She's like, yeah, I run, a 5K or, 10K or half marathon or whatever all the time. Just, yeah. It's what I do. It's what I like to do. It makes me feel good. She talks about being attacked by a dog. She talks about, being chased by a guy, a sexual predator guy at one point, how dangerous it is for her to be a runner in certain scenarios, but she just really enjoys running. And it's a good interview too. Bert's like, yeah, I wanted to talk to you about your correspondence performance and what went on there, and he keeps talking about a joke that made him laugh ridiculously, but also inspired him to want to write. And her special was so good, I watched it again. I mean, I'll be honest, I watched it again. I got off work yesterday and I was like, I'll just watch it again. It was good. It was good the second time. She's got an otter joke that I really like. No one else has an otter joke. I'm just saying. So anyway, Michelle Wolf, big fan. I subscribe to all your crap. Yeah, I like you. I'm gonna want to see you in person. I think your comedy is a different level. I think you're probably one of the top 10 out there right now. Really good. What else? Oh, listen to Dr. Drew After Dark. He interviewed Nadav. Nadav is an engineer that works for Your Mom's House, which is the Tom Segura, Christina Pazynski podcast group. They also do Two Bears, One Cave. They do a lot of different podcast productions, but he's one of the 3 engineers that they have. He's been with them the longest. He helps them set up their video stuff and their audio stuff. And on the Dr. Drew podcast, he's on mic a good bit. He has his engineering room, and once in a while he hits the button and talks to them about videos that they're going to watch or things that they're doing or whatever. And he does a really good interview with Dr. Drew, and he tells him, "Hey, I'm a fan. I'm 31. I grew up listening to you in Southern California, and I can't believe I'm here getting to ask you these questions." And it's really interesting. Really interesting content, because if you've listened to any of Dr. Drew After Dark, it's always crazy scenarios with crazy people, and they go even crazier. So anyway, Second Chance Church podcast. If anybody knows who Second Chance Church is, Perry Noble, he did a special right now. Of course, it's Christmas time, and this episode was Mary Did You Know? And it talks about how basically we all start off with a plan of what we think our plan is, and sometimes our plan changes. And he does an illustration with a saxophone and talks about the saxophone and how it's built. And the saxophone is nothing without someone who knows how to play it, playing it. And we are nothing if we're not given the opportunity to use the tools that we're given. And sometimes our plan is not what we end up doing. He talked a little bit about Chip and Joanna Gaines. Chip was this guy who worked at Firestone, and they were renovating a house, trying to flip a house. And when they flipped the first house, it went really well, and they just kept doing it. And they talk about they never saw themselves as an influencer or being able to have an empire like they have now of, creation and content, and never thought they'd be on TV. Now they have furniture outlets and clothing lines and all kinds of craziness. Started off with them just flipping a house. Interesting. It's a good podcast. It's a good sermon. I always listen to Perry Noble. Helps ground me. He did an episode a couple weeks back where he kept talking about they. He says, I'm all the time asked, can you believe what they said, what they think, what they blah, blah, blah. And this reminded me of a conversation that Bill Burr had with Bert Kreischer. Bert's talked about it. Bill had a special out a couple years ago that I guess Bill had crossed some lines of what society would think was okay, because he was challenging people to think. He was challenging people to find the joke in the situation. And Bert apparently called him up and said, "Hey, aren't you worried about what they're going to think?" And he said, "Who's this they? Do you know who they are? Are they friends of yours? Are they people you know, people you love?" And he said, "I don't know who they are, but I don't know them, so I don't care. And you shouldn't either." And he's right. He's absolutely right. Who are they? They is just a broad term. Whitney and him talk about that on her podcast, Good For You. He talks about, the opinions of others. He's like, if they don't pay my bills or I don't tell them I love them, then I don't care what they think. I don't care. Doesn't affect me. Doesn't move my needle. And that's something that a lot of people struggle with and a lot of people gauge themselves by. And again, taking this full circle back to what we started with, what happens when you create content your entire life? At what point are you forgiven for the things that you did when you were younger or the opinions you had when you were younger? Aren't we allowed to grow? We should be. I'm not the same person I was yesterday. I'm not the same person I was a year ago. My opinions are different. It's just a thought. Think about that. Last night, I watched the Imagineering story on Disney Plus, episode 6. They showed them building Shanghai, China, Disney. They talked about it being the biggest financial endeavor they've ever taken on. $3.9 billion was what they forecasted it to be before they started. It ended up being over $5 billion by the time they finished. I don't even know how to fathom that kind of number. Like, in your lifetime, you can hold $100. You might be able to hold a couple $1,000 and just hold it in your hand like, whoa. It's hard to fathom the term billion. That's a lot. That's a lot. A billion. Let alone 5 billion. That's basically like writing an open check saying, yeah, build whatever you want. Let's go with it. I don't care about the budget. Wow. I guess it's easy if you have a communist country and you control everyone's money through the government. The government can just say, nah, we got it. We're good. Just build whatever. We'll make the people work for nothing if we have to. I mean, I don't know if that's the case, but they're China. They're communist controlled. They can do that. They control media. They control everything you see and hear and consume. And they even control how many kids you can have. One child. You're allowed one child. That's it. The outcome is you can build Disneyland for $5+ billion. Yeah, sure. Why not? Of course, that was my takeaway from it. The second part of it was them making these attractions for China. They had to kind of up their game. They couldn't build Americana-style rides and streets and stuff like that. They had to kind of cater to what Chinese culture was going to be. And so it sort of forced them to up their game a little bit. So instead of having, like Space Mountain, they built Tron. And Tron is so cool that they thought, hey, let's build Tron in Florida, which they're doing right now. The Tron roller coaster. If you haven't seen the Tron roller coaster, go on YouTube and look at Tron. It looks so cool. It looks like the game, like the movie. When they redid the movie with the really cool looking motorcycles, it was even cooler. I mean, I remember being a kid and watching the first one, and I was like, wow, this is so awesome. You actually get sucked into the game. This was Jumanji, the reboot before Jumanji. Okay? Spoiler alert, the first Tron was a kid getting sucked into a video game. And he has to live and survive as a video game character. And if he gets deleted, well, game over. What a concept, right? Who would have thought? Then when they redid it, it looked even cooler. Well, now the ride is you riding on one of those cool motorcycle things, and it's a roller coaster, and you're leaned over like a motorcycle, doing the thing, and it looks so cool. Golly, I can't wait to ride it. It's going to be so awesome. But they don't only do the Shanghai stuff. They also talk about, once they finish that project, coming back home and going, okay, what are we going to do now? Like, what's our next thing now? And so they talk about building Pandora and the rides at Pandora and all immersive stuff that they've done there. And some of it was stuff they learned from building their stuff over in Shanghai. Some of the technology of the rides, and, part of it was their version of Pirates of the Caribbean is different. They have a different pirate. And their pirate system had to incorporate a lot of things that are being used in other rides now. Really cool stuff with magnets and the way that the cars move. And it's a good episode. It's a lot of behind the scenes stuff of what you can see being done. And the really cool part of this is all of it's being done under Bob Iger. And the more you watch it, the more you go, golly, this guy really has his hands in a lot of things. And he's sort of always pressing the go button. Like, it's just like, yeah, let's do that. Let's go big. Like, okay. I hope it all pays off for him. I really do. I mean, every time I go to Disney, I'm blown away by the technology and the stuff that's going on and their advancements. But, my wife's a super fan. And by approximation, I guess I'm a super fan. So I'll be checking it out. And that's it. I'm going to wrap this thing up. We did almost an hour. Golly. Must be the coffee. Must be the fact that it's, look, it's 6:30 in the morning. How about that? All right. You guys are probably still asleep, but I want to go ahead and bang one out. We're doing Christmas at my mom's today, so yay! I get to hang out with the grandson and all the nieces and nephews and my brothers. Should be fun. You guys take care, and please remember to rate, review, subscribe. I've only got one person reviewed on my YouTube or on the podcast. Is it the podcast? Yeah. I got one review on podcast. Some guy gave me a 3-star, and he's like, yeah, whatever. I was like, really? Dang. I was hoping for better than yeah, whatever. Oh, well. I guess when you do it yourself, that's all you can expect to get, right? At least it's not a 1-star. I mean, I guess when you get popular enough, you can have a whole bunch of people poo-poo on your parade. There's always the thumbs down guy. We used to joke about it on YouTube community stuff. You know you made it when you constantly had a thumbs down guy. You can make it the best video ever, and some guy's like, hate it, thumbs down. Some guy's just trolling you. He's just like, yeah, I'm going to hate everything this guy does. Yeah, go figure. But anyway, rate, review, subscribe, share with your friends. I'm probably going to do one of these tomorrow. I'm not sure if I'm going to do a simulcast or if I'm going to do one with Danny. Danny McWilliams has his own podcast now. Stuff I kind of care about. You can find him on Instagram and YouTube and now on Anchor. He's got his own podcast. I went and looked at his, listened to his podcast with No Cash, and he did a great job. He sounds great. He's testing out some new equipment. He's got these lavalier remote mics that really sound good. And I may play around with those in the future. So we're helping each other out. This is community. This is what we're supposed to do, right? So go check his stuff out. Tell him I sent you. And hey, we'll grow this thing together. Ooh, that was weird. Do you hear that? I noticed in the camera that my filter was off the microphone. It sounds really awful. I know people have tactile issues. So if you hear that, you're like, stop it. Stop doing that. Okay, I'll stop doing it. Just messing with you. All right. I'm going to wrap this up. Y'all have a great day. Merry Christmas. It's coming up. Love you. Bye. Oh, I forgot to say, cue the cow.